Hello everyone, and welcome to my first video series for the Go programming language titled The Basics. We're going to walk through the language, how to use it, and more importantly, go beyond your typical Hello World application and into something a little bit more practical. And I'll even introduce you to some of the problems, challenges, and solutions I've come across during my adventures with Go. In this video, we're going to talk about what Go is exactly, and why it was created, and what it's intended for. So the first question that comes to most people's minds is, why do we need another language? You know, what makes Go so special? Well, Go started out as an experiment within Google that was eventually released to the public as an open source project. A group of engineers became frustrated with all the drawbacks of the other languages and decided to create their own, and to do that, they first had to identify all the pain points. So for Java, it requires a JVM installed on the machine, which is pretty large. It's also a very verbose language, and it is known to be a memory hog. Then we have Python, which is great, but it is a very slow-running language and requires an interpreter to be installed on the machine, similar to a JVM. And then we have C, which is fast and simple and efficient, but it's hard to get right. In truth, there's not much in C other than a handful of helper functions. It doesn't even have a string type, so something as simple as checking for the word hello in a sentence is cumbersome to get right. Once you throw text encodings like UTF-8 into the mix, things just get even worse. Then we have C++, which is overly complex and slow to compile. It was actually meant to bring object-oriented design and built-in support for many of the common operations to C. But in an attempt to make everyone happy and make the language as flexible as possible, they ended up making it overly complex to the point where there's just so many ways to do one thing that it turned a lot of developers off. So with this knowledge, the engineers forged ahead and created what is now known as the Go programming language, and because searching for Go in a search engine produces a lot of unwanted search results, it has been effectively nicknamed Golang to overcome the indexing issues. So, how is Go different? Well, it has C-like syntax for simplicity. So if you're familiar with C, any of the bracket-style languages, you should feel right at home. It took the Python approach of batteries included standard library, which means that it can do a lot right out of the box. It's all built into the language. You don't need to pull in a bunch of other libraries for various different things. Concurrency is part of the language in the form of Go routines and channels. Typically, you would have to create threads or separate processes or anything like that to do two or more things at once, whereas Go has built-in support for thread pools, which it just calls Go routines, and then channels, which is a very unique method of exchanging information between the different threads and processes. It's also statically compiled to an assembly language for the targeted platforms, whether that's AMD 64, ARM, if you have a Raspberry Pi or similar devices. And it also produces a single binary for the application with no dependencies whatsoever. So that greatly simplifies how you deploy your application. It's also very fast to compile over something like C, and then the execution is nearly as fast as C. It has a garbage collector in it, which is really nice if you've ever had to do memory management. It creates very small binaries, which is also nice, especially if you're going to be running on embedded devices, things that may not have a lot of storage space. And taking that further, it's also very efficient with its memory usage. Again, good for small devices or really anything. Efficiency is good. So what is Go supposed to be used for? Systems programming is what comes to mind most of the time. You have web servers, everything from serving up static assets to providing APIs to full-sized websites. You have your message queues, search indexers, databases. There's actually quite a few databases written in Go. And then it's also good for compilers and related tools, not just for writing tools for Go itself, but for other languages. And it's also used for microservices, which we will get into a little bit more later on in the series. And this is just a sampling of possible uses. In practice, Go can do just about anything. There's even user interface libraries that are emerging for running applications on desktops with full graphical user interfaces, and there's even mobile initiatives to bring Go applications to Android and iOS devices. I hope you enjoyed this quick introduction to what Go is and why it was created. In the next video in this series, we'll look at some Go source code and talk about entry points, which in Go are called main functions. Thanks for watching.